Hi, and welcome to another episode of Follow Your Passion. I'm your host, Erwin Wils. I'm a mindset and business strategist at Millionaire Life Strategy. And today, I would like you to welcome my guest, Michelle Diamond. Michelle is CEO and founder of Diamond Executive Resumes and Elevate Diamond Strategy. She's featured in Forbes NEXT 1000, Entrepreneur Magazine, Authority Magazine, Thrive Global, CEO Journal, and many others. In business for already over 17 years, she worked with 65 domestic and global companies in 31 plus industries, and she's also the author of the book 10 Steps Guide to Creating Your Own Growth Strategy for Your Company, the secret to unlocking the mystery of achieving and sustaining sustainable, profitable growth. Welcome, Michelle. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So it doesn't show, but you're already in business for over 17 years. That's a long time of running your own business. So how did you come to start your own business?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I was in corporate America at the time. I was working for Cigna, which is a Fortune 100 company. And I had just finished, I shouldn't say just finished, I had built up the competitive intelligence function in the department that I was in. And I was looking to, I felt like at a personal crossroads. I kind of was looking to rather take what I had built because I had started it and then for myself, and I built up a team and it was running and it was doing very well. And then I said, okay, I'm at a place where I rather want to take it up a notch, and make it more strategic and build the department bigger. And I had other visions for it. Or, I wanted to do something that was a little bit different. But when I was there, the opportunities were pretty limited in the location I was in, and they'd wanted me to move. And for me personally, just my personal life wouldn't warrant me moving to a different state in the United States. And so I said, all right, you know what? Let me look at my career right now. I actually think I want to, I was going to leave. I was actually just going to get another job. But in my mind, I said, well, what would I want? I said, I want to do the consulting work that I love to do, but I didn't want to live out of a suitcase. Back then, before everything was remote, you had to travel, 4 or 5 times a week sometimes, for certain clients. And I, again, my personal life wouldn't warrant it. And quite frankly, I didn't want to do that, but I wanted to do the work that I loved, the strategic work that I loved. And so I honestly looked everywhere and I could not find what I wanted. And so for me, it's like, okay, well, if you can't find what you're looking for, just create it. And so in my mind, I went ahead, I created my business, I registered the company names, I did all these things. But I still thought, because I was very young back then, I was like 29 back then. And I still thought to myself, okay, maybe you'll do this when you're like 40 or something. I mean, that was my thinking. So I created everything because once I have a vision, I'm also very big on, okay, it's in my mind, I need to execute. And so I created the company. I had all these things there, but I didn't think I was going to do anything with it. And so I actually went and since I only ended up interviewing for 2 places. And it's very interesting because one place was actually, I was a finalist, but I didn't get. And then the other one was very interesting because it was another consulting firm and they were just building the model where you wouldn't have to travel and do the consulting work, but they were very early. They had literally just started their business and they were looking for someone to be more in the business development role, more of a partner role. And at the time, I didn't have the Rolodex for where I was living. And so I didn't end up getting the position. However, they did end up becoming one of my partners about a year or so later and ended up getting me several big contracts. Yeah. So it was great. And we still have a great relationship to this day. But yeah, those are only 2. And then when I didn't get it, I said, okay, well, that's it. I'm just going to go out on my own and I'm going to see what happens. And fortunately for me, it's worked out.
Yeah. So you use that experience as a motivation to push through with your own company.
Well, yes, absolutely. And more importantly for me, I guess I wasn't thinking in terms of work-life balance, but that was very important for me. I just felt like, even back then, when people weren't focusing on it so much, I'm like, even though I still work hard, but at the same time, I'm doing it with a bit more control. And that was helpful for me.
Yeah, definitely. I can totally understand that. And how did you find the beginning years of being your own boss, being an entrepreneur?
It was very interesting because I got very good advice from wonderful mentors, people who ended up being mentors. Some were colleagues and just people I worked with. Some were even vendors. We just got good relationships. And so before I started out, I just said, okay, let me speak to people who had been very successful in, being an independent consultant, building their own firms, whether it was pure consulting, marketing, research, things of that nature. And so I asked all of them what to expect. And they all said, well, since I was going to be in a new city and I didn't want to travel, I was going to pretty much have to start from scratch. And they told me, how to network and how it would take time. They said it would probably take between 6 months and a year before you got your first client. And they were right, because I didn't get my first, at least strategy client until 10 months in. I mean, the resumes I ended up doing just because I figured, okay, if it might take 6 to 12 months, I might as well still do something I think is an easier, shorter sale. And that was. So I
Yeah.
started the resume business with my first growth strategy client. I didn't get until 10 months in. And it was great because even though it took that long, the first client that I got, I ended up having them for 2.5 years. So
Oh,
it
wow.
was a lot of, yeah, it took 10 months, but by the time I finally got the yes,
Yeah.
it was great. But so I had some stability at the same time. What I found was that because once I finally got rolling, I felt like, okay, I was rolling. I had that client, and then the same one that I just mentioned I'd interviewed with, then, I reached out and they had these great long-term engagements and projects. So it was great. So everything started off when it finally started was pretty good. And then though, after the, first few years, then other things, came into place in terms of, when there were gaps in timing and kind of ups and downs and things like that. And so I think it was a little bit harder for me at first because I didn't, a lot of you hear these stories about how, people have so much, go through all these trials and tribulations before you get your business started. For me, it's a little bit opposite in the sense of it wasn't that much trial and tribulation when I first started, but then once I did it after a few years. So because of that, when things didn't flow exactly, or there were gaps in times and things like that, I'm like, wait a second, I'm not starting again. Why am I experiencing this? And so it was a bit tougher for me. And honestly, I was not very good at doing business development while I was still running my practice, because I was so busy and focused on just doing good work, that I, again, got a lot of the referral sources and things going. And my business has still been mainly in referrals, but at the same time, it just was something that I had to kind of mentally handle because, everything, again, I had consistent work flowing to me. And then when you're consistent over a period of time, and all of a sudden you're not as consistent, and it's not really anything that's your fault. It's just the nature, of this profession.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was just something that took a bit, it was a bit harder for me to do. And I had to realize that I had to put some fundamentals in place that I quite frankly hadn't put in at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's challenging to balance your work between working in your business and working on your business.
Mm-hmm,
And you
mm-hmm,
might underestimate the need to work on your business.
mm-hmm.
And
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
that's very important, at least to do some strategic work, to be there, because if people can't find you, why should they do
Mm-hmm.
business with you?
Right, absolutely.
So, the first, I also heard you telling me about some great entrepreneurial skills. One of them was, you said, if it isn't there, I should create it. So you take
Mm-hmm.
action. And I think for an entrepreneur, that's crucial, to take action, because if you wait for clients to come to you, they will never come. So you have to take action and go after them, so to speak. So did you have any entrepreneurial background, or maybe friends or family, or was it all new to you when you started?
No, actually, it was all new to me. It was interesting because I never considered myself an entrepreneur, even though, it's funny, I had a conversation with someone at a dinner event, a networking event. And, I had forgot that actually I was an entrepreneur when I was much younger. I just forgot because it had been so many years. Because honestly, I wasn't like the people who, I hate corporate America and this is so difficult. And honestly, until that snag happened, I was actually very content. I was being treated right. And, I was able to work through things. I guess I'd already always showed some of those skill sets within the jobs and the companies that I've had, because except for maybe, I think maybe my first role or one other role in my entire career before I went out on my own, only a couple of them were actual positions. Meaning, like, usually I'd get a job position and I'd get there and I'd just do well. And if I said, okay, I think I want to do something else, or, I saw more of a need, I always had executives or senior executives that I worked with that always created positions for me. So even my career path before then wasn't necessarily the typical one. But that's usually because I spoke up if I saw a need or if I wanted to do something different, or it was just very situational based in terms of a problem that needs to be solved and things like that. But during this conversation at this event, I realized, when I was actually, I believe I was 10, I actually created my own business, and I had completely forgotten about
Oh,
this.
wow.
I created a gum candy business, and it was because I was at a Catholic school. And they were very strict, and you were not allowed to go anywhere during breaks. And so I used to go to dancing school on the weekends that was close to the Catholic school, and I found this place where you can get these little candies for a penny, 1 cent.
Yeah.
And I remember when I got $1 or something, I just buy like 100 of them. And then I would take them to school and I started selling them for like 5 cents for all the younger kids, and the older kids I charged 10 cents because I figured they had money and they
Yeah.
couldn't go anywhere because you weren't allowed. So I had this like thing, and I actually made a lot of money. I hired people, I had runners, I had everything. And then the nuns shut me down. Like, they found out, and they acted like it was so horrible. I'll never forget, they had a lesson in school and they said, she buys it for 1 cent and she charges you 5 cents, or she charges you, and acting like I was robbing people, even though I wasn't robbing anybody. I was being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So they shut me down, and that was that. And fortunately, I transferred to public school. I hated Catholic school, but I transferred to public school. And by then, though, everyone could do whatever. So the business model didn't really sustain itself. And I was happy years later in my high school years when I got a job. So I guess I'd always had that. But for the most part, my mindset was not, oh, I want to start my own company. It was really like, okay, I was thinking more in terms of job. I'll just get my own job. I'll get my own job. So that
Yeah.
was really the first time, though, that aside from when I was younger, even though when I was thinking about doing it, I hadn't thought about that in years. I said to myself, I looked at it, I think, more in terms of a position, honestly. I didn't think about it in terms of, oh, I'm going to be this big entrepreneur. This is what I've always wanted to do. It was really, like I said, more situational. And within the executive roles that I've had, I've always done stuff to create, again, like I said, I had created the competitive intelligence function at one of Cigna's divisions when they didn't have one. It's just because people couldn't answer basic questions. And I said, well, if you can't answer stuff about what's going on with your competitors, you clearly need somebody to do this. And so my mindset had been that way throughout my entire career. I just didn't have the entrepreneur label. And so going out on my own, I didn't even see as a big deal. All these people like, oh my gosh, like, encouraging me that it was a big deal. But for me, like I said, I just thought to myself, well, I'll try this out. I mean, I'd always been good financially and saving and all of that. I was like, if it doesn't work out in a year, I'll just go get a job. So it just wasn't something that I'd always see myself. But it's ironic because while I hadn't seen myself doing that, I've done it now for so long. I think I find myself saying, goodness, I love the flexibility that you have as an entrepreneur. I think I'm very much an entrepreneur, and I have been now, and even not just in actuality in terms of my mindset. Whereas beforehand, I didn't look at it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, wonderful story about your 10-year-old as well. I really love that. And I can already see how that went. Already getting this image in my mind, and I see you selling those candies, and so yeah, it's wonderful. You had a great business
Well, I
model.
thought so. Maybe I would have been a great entrepreneur earlier if those nuns hadn't shut me down.
Yeah. So I guess a lot of people took that idea from you, because now we call it drop shipping, I guess, at Amazon and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, nice. So you're now in business for 17 years already.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still love what you do?
I do. I actually do. I really enjoy what I do. Actually, both businesses, I love what I do. For me, it's about taking people and companies to the next level. And even when you're taking companies to the next level, it's still people, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so I love being able to learn so much about so much. Because that's the nature of what you do. Whether I'm doing executive and board resumes, I'm learning, a lot of times I may be familiar with person's industry or background because I've been fortunate enough on the business side to be exposed to so much, but I'm helping them to achieve their goals, but I'm still learning. At the same time, on the growth strategy side, it's also great because I'm also working with all these wonderful businesses and individuals. And while I'm contributing and helping them to enter a new market or beat the competitors or M&A or to develop or execute whatever it is they're doing, at the same time, I'm also learning and obtaining a lot of knowledge. And so that's really great. One of the reasons why I wrote the book, the 10-step guide, as you mentioned, to creating
Yeah.
your growth strategy, is because I know for the strategy profession, that's just not something that the average person even knows what that is. The average business owner doesn't know what that is. Not even the average executive if you're not in the strategy area, if you've just never touched this part for your career. And so a lot of that was about me sharing my learnings for what I've learned in just a simpler way to people who don't understand it. Because before I got in this profession, I didn't even know it existed. I was actually a CPA, equivalent of chartered accountant, outside of the States. And I was, at a point where I said, wow, I want to do this wonderful work. I said, I want to do something else, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, a colleague of mine mentioned to me strategy consulting. I said, well, what is that? I had no clue. And he said, well, he mentioned it to me and I said, oh, you know what? I've already worked with clients when I was at Ernst & Young and I love that part and I love the variety and everything else. And then he said, okay, well, you know what? Maybe you want to get into strategy consulting. When he talked about it, I said, wow, that sounds like a big deal. How do you do that? He's like, oh, well, you have to go get an MBA. And I was like, what is an MBA? He said, oh, you have to go to a top school. So I said, okay, my mindset was whatever's the best is the best. I
Yeah.
want the best. So let me know what it is. So when he mentioned that, I said, okay, great. And he gave me the list of, I went on to US News and World Report and the global firms. And I said, okay, these are the top schools. And I picked from there. And then I went on that path. So, I think my mindset has always been, okay, let me see where I have a passion, for something that I'm doing, as well as the skill sets, because you can have passions for certain things, not the skill sets, right? And you can rather
Oh yeah.
obtain the skill sets, or if it's doable, or you can say, all right, this is just a passion I have. I'll figure out another way to enjoy it,
Yeah.
but for me, this was one of the paths. And so when I still do the work now, all these years, it's like the world is always changing. Things are always dynamic. I always meet great people. And so, it's something that it doesn't have a beginning and end, just a continuous nature that I love with what I do still.
Nice. Nice. And how important would you say that your mindset is in being a success in business?
Oh, that's probably the most important thing. I would say
Yeah.
if you don't have that, you can be all over the place. And, I'm not going to act like I've always had the strongest mainstay mindset with everything, especially during some of those downs. The ups are easy, obviously, the downs a bit harder. But I think embedded in me, I've always had the mindset of, you figure out how to get it done. And you do what you want to do, and you have one life to live. You need to enjoy it every day to the extent possible.
Yeah.
And for me, what I realized is having a growth mindset it was inherent. I mean, I'm always trying to grow my business as well as other businesses, helping other people grow in their careers. My mindset is always growth, with everything. Grow my book sales and, grow that so that I can get it out to as many people as possible and all that other stuff. So I'm always thinking in terms of that. But I think um the hardest thing sometimes is not really having the growth mindset. I think most people have that inherently, whether they're fully focused on it or not. I think it's having the belief mindset. And especially, like I said, during those kind of ups and downs times, and the confidence mindset. And also, I think balancing yourself, holistically. So, a lot of what I do, and especially over the years, I've learned is as an entrepreneur, you're thinking a lot of times just in terms of business, and that is extremely important, of course, right? You have your own business to grow, you have your own other things that, initiatives and
Yeah,
things that you're working on, and you're helping your clients and all that. But you have to have a mindset where you're holistic yourself, and so, mentally, physically, emotionally, all it relationally, all those things, having the balance in your mind and everything
yeah,
else
yeah,
is
yeah.
extremely important. And so I think that kind of mindset with the both of them, I think that's how you sustain, because otherwise it's very easy to rather burn out, if you're on like a, let's say, a high roll. But then it's also easy to get very stuck or stagnant. And when those kind of obstacles come, or those gaps of time come, and you're trying to figure out what you want to do, if your mindset is not strong or you're not balanced with everything, then it'll be a lot harder, to be able to keep that up.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you. Couldn't have said it better. Yep. Do you have you've helped a lot of clients over the years. Is there one particular story that even when you think about it, it excites you about the results you've gained or the transformation that your client has gone through that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, actually I can. I mean, I've had a lot, but this is one of my favorites. And I'm not going to mention the company name, of course, but
Of course.
yeah, of course, but I can at least I can go into some detail because they've been acquired now, so it's okay. But and I got them before they were acquired. Yeah, it was actually one of my favorites, because actually this was one where I actually partnered with a small consulting firm. It was just, very, small firm, and we actually went up against McKinsey and we beat them for this
Oh
engagement.
wow.
So it was a very David and Goliath thing. Yeah. I was brought on specifically, they worked on their existing business, but I was brought on specifically to help identify white space opportunities, like for their for this particular company that wasn't growing. And they were focused, the reason why they weren't growing is because they were focused on pulp and paper. And as you know, the world doesn't use as much paper as they did before. Right? So that's very basic. And this is a long time ago. I had this client. So, the world wasn't using paper, a lot more paper back then either, when we were switching over to, email and e-commerce and all of this. And they had been around like 100 years or something. So, it's a very, I mean, it had been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
And all they'd ever done, was chemicals to pulp and paper. And so the market was shrinking, and so did they. I mean,
Yeah.
very kind of basic ABC type of thing. And they were doing what a lot of companies do, reactionary. They're losing money. So what do? They start cutting costs. They lay
Yeah.
people off, they cut costs here. They do all these different things until they're not growing. They're a public companies. So Wall Street is screaming at them, stock exchanges, like, what is going on? You're not growing. The board is screaming at them, like, look, you guys have to figure out a way to grow. And so I was brought in to help them identify, new opportunities, and then help them to enter those markets. And that's one of my
Yeah.
specialties in terms of the new market identification and entry. And so when I worked with this particular company, it was interesting because in dealing with the individuals, the ones that were left, because they had laid off so many people, they didn't have a mindset of growth. They also didn't have a mindset of, we can do anything different than what we've already done. All we've ever done is pulp and paper for all these years. How are we going to do anything different? And
Yeah.
so me working with this particular client, like other clients too, but this one a little bit more because they were in such a dire situation, was not only doing the analysis to help them to enter into a new market and to do all that, but it was really honestly helping to convince them that they could do it, period. They really didn't have the belief that they can do anything else other than pulp and paper. They were like, okay, we can understand if you're going to help us do other things in pulp and paper, but you're telling us we have to look for a completely new market. And they just couldn't get their minds wrapped around it. And so I had to really work with that. And on top of that, there was still a lot of pressure because the board was very upset that the CEO chose us over McKinsey. They're like, what's wrong with you? We're in a sinking ship here. How the heck are you going to pick these people at McKinsey? Now, granted, we weren't, people that didn't have any experience and didn't work for large firms and, and didn't have the credentials. We all did. It's just we didn't come from that firm. We beat them.
Yeah.
So, but the board was not happy because the board didn't make the decision. So they're kind of grumbling the whole time. And then on top of that, the executive who was going to take over what I built was someone from sales. And for him, a sales background, he didn't understand he didn't see the reason for any type of strategy to fail. He's like, just tell me where to go and I'll sell. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. You have to like actually do research and analyze and figure out, what's the best way. Growth strategy is about what to do as well as what not to do. You don't just do that on the fly. And he couldn't get it. So I had all these other things outside of the actual analysis to do for this particular company. But fortunately, what I did is as I worked, I taught and I shared and I exposed and I got them into a completely new area. I got them into biofuels. And this was over a decade ago. So this was, they were very early in it. And it was great because I was able to leverage a lot of the existing products and they even had capacity in their plants. So it was really something that was very profitable for them.
Yeah.
And I helped them to gain $300 million, well, these US dollars, but $300 million added to a company that was only over $1 billion. So needless to say, they were very happy because, I got to add a lot of revenue to them in proportion. And, the salesperson who ended up, they were turning into this executive, well, they're making him a general manager in essence, got to learn this stuff as well as appreciate, the work that goes into it and how you come about this, and the board was happy and, everyone got on board and it was great. But it was a lot of, again, like I said, not the actual work itself. Now, any, to me, this is my opinion, in business, not just consulting, in business and anything you do, 50% or more of what you're dealing with is the human side, the emotional side, figuring out how to work with this person side anyway. So I don't think what I did was so that revolutionary because I think in any kind of business interaction, you're dealing with that outside of whatever work you're trying to get done. And in consulting, it's no different. But in this particular case, before that time, I hadn't really dealt with people in that regard, or at least on my own. I shouldn't say that. I did some of those things in my corporate life, but I hadn't really done that in my consulting life where I really had to deal with people where so much of it was just really convincing them that yes, you can do something differently. Yes, industry experience is great, but if you don't have industry experience in something, that doesn't mean you can't just learn a new industry. Like it's not, you can actually do this. And yes, your company can do this and be successful. And that was just a larger part of the engagement than even the analysis. But the analysis itself was great too, because, biofuels was something different. It was a market that I got them into, as well as the way that I got them into, because it was, they could leverage their things for what was at the time considered second generation type of work. So the technology was just emerging. And so I helped them come up with a strategy where they got into the existing market and they were able to get some sales, but then underneath it was more of a stealth strategy. They were really building themselves up for the larger play. And when things got going, they were able to capitalize on that. So I was very happy about that entire engagement.
Nice. Would you say that they were in survival mode when you got into the company?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, they were losing money and they were not growing. So that if you're stuck and you're stagnant, that's the essence of survival mode. Because if you keep on trying to do the same thing, right? Sometimes it's human nature, sometimes businesses do it, right? Their mindset was we're in pulp and paper. So even though paper is shrinking, instead of them trying to focus on, okay, this market is shrinking, it's not coming back. And people are not going to go back to paper. Then, we need to think of something differently. But so many companies and individuals have that mindset like, oh, no, we're just going to keep on trying to figure this out, doing what we've always done, doing it the same way, thinking the same way. Yeah. We're just going to try to see if we can find more in what we're doing, even though the world has changed, they didn't change. And so, like I said, at least the board was like, look, you have to do something different. And the company didn't end up going down. I mean, they did later on get acquired, but they still were successful before they got acquired. So, and even then when they did get acquired, it was, obviously for a large multiple and everything else. But, so many companies and people have that mindset. And to be successful and to survive, you cannot act that when the world changes, you can't not change with the world. You have to change with the world and be continuous with it. But if you're stuck in your ways, then you're going to be in survival mode.
Yeah. I just remembered a great quote from Einstein, what the definition of insanity is. Mm-hmm. Keep doing the same things, expecting different results.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like when your favorite soccer team just misses a goal and you keep repeating the goal to see if it goes in the second time or the third time, you know?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, well, okay, you know that it's going to get blocked. They know what you're going to do. You have to do something differently.
Yeah. But it's true, you know. One of my coaches once said that there can be so much inside of a person, you know, but you don't see it yourself. What's all inside it? You need somebody from out of the box to look at the label, what's inside of it. That's the same. I guess it's the same what you did. You looked at the capabilities of the company, you know, and looked for other markets, other opportunities where I could use the same skill set, but just in a different way. Yeah,
Yeah.
great story, and great results, by the way. Congratulations on
Oh,
that.
yes, thank you. It's still one of my favorites.
Yeah. I totally get it why that is.
Mhm.
If you would look at your current lifestyle, could you say how many hours a week you're working on in or on your business? Or
Now, I would say, I still work a reasonable time. I try to do a 40-hour week. I mean, to the extent possible. It goes, it can go up. Well, it doesn't always, well, it goes down sometimes, but it goes mainly up, but again, that just depends on my workload. So it can go up to like 50, 60 sometimes, but that's honestly a lot rarer now, because I've learned, as long as you focus and you get stuff done, it doesn't have to take that long. Honestly. And then, as you get older, again, work-life balance means more. I think when I was in my 20s and early 30s, I was more focused on putting in as many hours as possible. And while I still will do that, if it's necessary,
yeah,
I think to myself, okay, do I need to hire someone to help me? Are there certain things I can outsource that I'm actually taking time on? That's not really the best use of my time. Ask myself more of those questions and then think, okay, I can bring people on because, the work you have, your actual work, but then you have a lot of administrative type of things. You have a lot of scheduling type of things, formatting types of things, things that, okay, I can technically do, but, for the amount of time it's taking me doesn't make sense type of thing. And
yeah,
so for me, I can hire someone and just kind of, smooth it out. But for the most part, everything else is like, I can get the most of the work and everything else I need to get done in a normal day. You think about it, when you're at a large company or you're at a large organization, a lot of what you take time on during the day is the chit chat, is the, kind of the water cooler,
yeah,
kind of talk type of thing. And so when you're on your own, you don't have to do that. You can just focus on work and you
yeah.
find that, wow, a 7, 8 hour day, I can actually get a tremendous amount done.
Oh yeah, you're not
Not
called in for any
doing all
meetings
that
with your
extra stuff.
colleagues.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's definitely a lot more balanced now. And but again, if it's a big project or I get an influx of a lot of different things, or like I said, I have two businesses, so it's just worked out a lot where somehow, some way, they always seem to work out where, if I have gaps in the strategy consulting business, just due to timing, because it is still an art. Large companies can figure the timing and scheduling out because they just have a lot more clients and they can push in a lot of different things. But as a small company, most of the time I try to get, contracts to work, but company needs to be ready. I need to be ready. We both have to have availability. And most of the time it lines up, but a lot of times it doesn't. And during those gaps of times, it always seems like the resume business will have an uptick. And I say, oh, okay, great. And then I'll just do that. But a lot
Yeah.
of times both are an uptick. And even with the executive resume business, I'm focused on actually growing that and expanding that this year because I've gotten so much business and so much interest in it. And it's an area that not everyone knows how to do well. And so, especially at the executive and the board level. And so, since I'm going to expand that, now it's a matter of, building the processes in place and bringing people on as well so that my life can still be balanced.
Nice. And it's just what you said, that we all have the same time to our disposal, and the only thing we can truly manage is the energy we put in that. And if you put your energy in the things you love to do, then it doesn't feel like work. You just do it and it feels great. While if you're doing, for instance, if you don't like blogging, and you have to write a blog, it can take you 1.5 days because you don't like it. You have to put yourself into action, and it will just take you longer. And the moment you can delegate that to somebody else and use the same time to help your clients, you're more efficient and more effective as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because, honestly, I love the work. I hate business development. Even after all these years, I really can't stand it. I don't like it. I don't like again, most of my business has been referral based, and that's been great.
Yeah.
But obviously I've still had to do business development on my own as well. The resumes, executive resumes on board, business development is easy. So I don't really, I shouldn't say easy, but it's not as the same level as the strategy consulting business. Business development for that's a lot more involved. And that process, even though it's part of obviously growing your business and sustaining it, I honestly don't like it. If that's something I could farm out to someone, I'd be like, here, just go ahead and do business development for me. And all I can do is just the work. But obviously I've had to do that over the years and things like that. So that part, I won't lie, that's something that sometimes I have to just get myself mentally, prepared for, because, I like things very kind of straight and to the point. And obviously sometimes you have to go through processes and iterations and, negotiations, or you don't, but then it's still again about trying to make sure that you can understand what the client wants and needs, and things like that. And especially if you're going up against other people and think, so there's just a lot more involved, and that process I don't really care for, but the actual work I always do. So it's always worth it to do the actual work. But that's why I love referrals. These referrals, when they come, I can just say yes. Oh, what do you need? All right, fine. There's no trying to pull teeth. It's like, oh, okay, great. This is what you want. Okay, good. This is what it will cost. This is how long it will take. This is what the results you'll get and what I can help you achieve. Okay, great. And then we move on with life. See, those are great.
Yeah, those are the best.
Not so much.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I got a feeling we could talk for hours, Michelle. I love hearing about your story and the wisdom you shared. Is there any tip or little piece of wisdom you would like to share with the audience?
I have I have quotes that I listen to and I read, and affirmations and all things as well. But I think my favorite quote is, it's better to be prepared and have no opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. And, for me, I have found that that is really true in everything that I've done, especially in business. I think that even if you don't know something, you can learn it. And even if you know something, you can still make sure that you maintain the communication to actually get it done. I think preparation is just key in whatever, avenue you go, and in any business that you decide to pursue, and any, clients that you decide to, and customers that you need to serve. To the extent that you're prepared, I think that helps tremendously, and it will give tremendous results.
Nice. I love that quote, by the way. Better be prepared and have no opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. I think that's what people say, great preparation is half the work. So when you're ready for it, then you know what to do, how to execute, and your client will be more than happy with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Nice. So if people want to know more about you, or you maybe even order your book, or get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Yes. So I, again, three things, because those are the three main things I'm doing. So Elevate Diamond Strategy. That's my the name of the growth strategy business, whereas again, focus on new market entry, M&A, and competitive intelligence on a development execution side. That is at the regular website, www.elevatediamondstrategy.com. Diamond Executive Resumes, which is the executive and board level resumes, even though sometimes entrepreneurs change professions, or they want to go on boards. A lot of entrepreneurs like it for the board side. That is Diamond Executive Resumes, and that's www.diamondexecutiveresumes.com. And then my book, The 10-Step Guide to Creating Your Own Growth Strategy for Your Company, is it's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble, it's also on the Elevate Diamond Strategy website. You can go ahead and get that, pick that up as well. I think it's very helpful. The book, I created it to teach you growth strategy in 10 steps. I used to speak on this topic to small business owners who didn't know what consultants were or how to create one for their own companies. And I think it's very helpful because you're getting the opportunity to get a peek inside what large companies typically gain themselves behind the scenes, but it's a way for you to help you to grow your business in a very simple way that I found to be very helpful, and people at least have given me feedback that has been very helpful for them to understand and help them grow their businesses. So that you can find on all of those places as well.
Nice. And I think that the best part I didn't even mention, you got a great surname, because a diamond, you know, it's the most precious gem. So I know if they start working with you, they get the best they can even wish for.
Well, that's a great thing. Yeah, I diamond is also my birthstone and everything else. So yeah, I always believe in getting the best and having the best. There's some people who try to shy away from that because they believe, oh, it's out of humility. I don't think that's humility. I think that's false humility. I think this world has the best the life has to offer, and whatever's the best, I want it, and I want it for my clients. So
Perfect.
thank you.
Yeah, it was lovely talking to you, Michelle. I wish you lots of luck and love in your profession, and let's keep in touch.
Thank you.